10 Harsh Realities of Being a Star Wars Fan. Star Wars is a massively popular franchise for a reason, and there's so much to love about Star Wars movies and TV shows, but being a fan isn't always easy. In fact, even before Disney bought Star Wars, the fanbase was full of division, and new projects were already being accused of ruining the franchise. In addition to this divisiveness, there are various things within Star Wars itself that are bitter pills for fans of the galaxy far, far away to swallow. Of all the hard truths Star Wars fans must accept, these 10, ranging from issues in the movies and shows to real-life problems with the franchise, are the harshest of them all. The Acolyte, which released last year and ran for just one season, quickly became one of Star Wars' most controversial projects to date, perhaps outpacing even the sequel trilogy in terms of negative reception. Although The Acolyte Season 2 was never officially announced, so the show wasn't really cancelled, it was a shock to hear it wasn't being renewed. It's impossible to say for certain, without Lucasfilm's confirmation, that the backlash to The Acolyte was the reason the show didn't get a Season 2, although that feels like the most logical explanation. Despite the negativity, though, there were many who did like the show and were disappointed by this news. This led to a widespread online campaign with #RenewTheAcolyte being used across social media platforms, and even some of the show's stars, such as Manny Jacinto, who played Kimmer/the Stranger, chimed in as well. Unfortunately, with how controversial the project proved to be and Star Wars seemingly moving on, it feels very unlikely to ever return. Although The Acolyte arguably proved even more controversial, the Star Wars sequel trilogy remains one of the most hot-button issues in the franchise, even a decade after Star Wars: The Force Awakens debuted. Even now, many see this trilogy as Star Wars' worst movies. While outright hatred of the movies, especially when targeted at the actors, is often vitriolic and unwarranted, there were legitimately many problems with the sequel trilogy, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker in particular, which frequently felt as though it was grasping at straws, story-wise. The most disappointing part of this is that the sequels had so much potential. This was a brand new era of the Star Wars timeline and canon, which made the options effectively limitless. They also had all 3 original trilogy heroes signed on and brilliant source material and legends. Unfortunately, this was fumbled. Perhaps one of the biggest issues currently plaguing the Star Wars franchise is how unstable and uncertain the future of Star Wars movies and shows, especially movies, feels. Currently, there are numerous upcoming Star Wars movies that have been announced, but the only ones that feel guaranteed are The Mandalorian and Grogu and Star Wars: Starfighter. Glaringly absent from the list of nearly certain projects is Rey's new movie, which was rumored to be titled Star Wars: New Jedi Order. This movie was announced at Star Wars Celebration 2023, and it felt like a logical next step for Star Wars, especially considering the sequel trilogy had set Rey up as a key figure moving forward. Not only was this movie unacknowledged at Star Wars Celebration 2025, but also there are several other Star Wars movies in limbo, such as Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie. What's more, Ahsoka Season 2 is the only confirmed live-action project of upcoming Star Wars TV shows, again suggesting the future is uncertain. There have been calls for Star Wars to move on from the Skywalker saga, including by not continuing to bring back actors like Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker and Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, but the truth is, we've been absolutely spoiled and lucky to get these returns, especially because the window of opportunity for such returns is sadly limited. While I understand audiences wanting to see new stories in this franchise, I don't feel that has to come at the expense of bringing these beloved actors and characters back to the Star Wars screen, particularly given that the ability to do so is fleeting. Realistically, for example, Christensen can only come back as Anakin's Force ghost for so long. Currently, Christensen is 44, and it won't make sense for Anakin's Force ghost to continue aging. He works brilliantly in the role for now, so fans should drop the calls for Star Wars to move on and celebrate that these appearances are still an option. Sadly, it's only a matter of time before the franchise is forced to move on. Star Wars has long been a master of fixing mistakes retroactively, even as early as the original trilogy. Unfortunately, not everything that has been broken can be fixed, even in this franchise. There are some plot points that have an unavoidable finality to them. As just one example, Ben Solo's death in The Rise of Skywalker ended the Skywalker bloodline. It's true that The Rise of Skywalker was billed as the end of the Skywalker saga, although that didn't require the death of the very last Skywalker by blood. Now, Star Wars has painted itself into a corner where the most beloved family in the franchise is gone from the galaxy, outside of their Force ghosts. It will be interesting to see how this plays out in the future and how successful Star Wars can be with this lineage now destroyed. Even the way in which Ben Solo died left a bad taste in many viewers' mouths, though, and that's yet another aspect of this that can't really be fixed. The inverse of some plot points being unfixable is the fact that retcons are never going away in Star Wars. Retcons have proven controversial within the fanbase. This was actually one of the major complaints about The Acolyte, as some felt the show was changing too much. Yet, retcons have been a staple of Star Wars since the beginning. After all, that is how we got the Skywalker family as it is today. Darth Vader, Luke, and Leia being related was not the plan at the outset of A New Hope. Retcons have also proven to be incredibly worthwhile in other examples as well, such as with the introduction of Ahsoka Tano in Star Wars, The Clone Wars. Some may see retcons as ruining Star Wars, and that complaint doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon, but neither do retcons. Andor Season 2 concluded this year, bringing an end to what is now widely viewed as one of Star Wars' best TV shows, if not the single best overall. Andor felt like it completely changed the game, proving what a Star Wars show could do and how successful the franchise can be, even outside the movies and/or Skywalker saga. Yet, with that victory comes the concern that Andor may very well be the best Star Wars ever gets again. As mentioned, the future of Star Wars movies and shows remains on shaky ground, and with so many new projects up in the air, it's not clear whether the incredible storytelling, thoughtfulness, and impact demonstrated in Andor will be replicable. In spite of Star Wars revisiting certain characters many times, there are still myriad mysteries that may never be revealed, which is surely a harsh reality for many fans. On the less serious end, this includes things like Anakin Skywalker's scar. Although Anakin is perhaps the most influential character in the franchise, we never learn where this scar comes from. A more serious example is the whereabouts of Cassian Andor's sister. Andor begins with Cassian desperately searching for his sister, Carrie, from whom he was separated as a child. Sadly, even by the end of Andor Season 2, it's unknown what happened to her, and given Cassian's subsequent death in Rogue One, a Star Wars story we may never know. Nostalgia can be a wonderful thing, and as a 90s kid, I understand how deep nostalgia runs in Star Wars. The prequels will always be my favorite movies, for example. However, nostalgia often ruins fans' joy when it comes to Star Wars. From the prequels on, there was resentment that new projects weren't exactly like the original trilogy. Ironically, though, this goes against what Star Wars creator George Lucas wanted for his franchise. Lucas was all about taking risks in the first 3 movies and, notably, in the prequels as well, and he no doubt wants that tradition carried forward, even with Disney's acquisition of the company. No, this doesn't always go well. I share many frustrations with the sequel trilogy, as it happens. However, if everything Star Wars does is always compared against the original trilogy, which will remain unparalleled because of the nostalgia tied to the movies, then there won't be any joy surrounding new projects, which is truly a shame. Finally, the harshest reality for Star Wars fans overall is that Lucasfilm still hasn't addressed the biggest problem in the franchise: the division, negativity, and downright vitriol in the fanbase. It's no secret that Star Wars fans have become increasingly hostile to change over the years, which has even manifested in attacks on the creators and actors. In fact, Ewan McGregor made a post addressing the racist attacks on Moses Ingram, who played Reva in Obi-Wan Kenobi. Other actors have suffered similar fates, and it is frequently actors of color, women of color in particular, who are the targets of such online attacks. Kelly Marie Tran, who played Rose Tico in the sequels, is also among them. Unfortunately, and rather surprisingly, Lucasfilm hasn't made a statement telling those engaging in these attacks that this behavior is unacceptable and antithetical to the Star Wars franchise. This really is a necessary step for Star Wars to move forward. Otherwise, the division and vitriol are likely to only grow.